Well, welcome everybody to the show. Yeah, it's unmuted. I don't know why I started. You always should let the ladies go first. Well, now I'm pointing to one or the other, but um it's great to be back. We've had a little we have a hiatus, but you have no idea we did because these shows are going to be coming one after the other. But I spent some time in Hawaii and Jeff traveled the world, like drove across the whole US just for the heck of it. And Sandy, I never know where you are because whether right, you're always somewhere in the world.
That's
So,
very
which is
true, Michael.
it's very true, isn't it? But that's great because you're always addressing your clients. You're always really see, we're just diving in by the way to the show, everybody. But you're really and if you love this show and you love what you hear, just tell a lot of people and download and have fun. But um what happens is you go to your clients and you actually really get to work with them, but it's that importance of it's the new year. And being the new year and being that it's January, right? And being that we're here at this time, um, what I'm finding with a lot of clients that I've talked to, and we have a lot of very high level clients, is they're not getting why we talk about marketing dollars. We talk about really getting yourself out there and the branding behind it. And they
Mhm.
start to say, well, why do I need to spend money? And I could do the whole thing around McDonald's and Coca-Cola. And I mean, you could go all day on this, but it's an issue that I'm definitely finding, especially with, entrepreneurs have business owners have this same thing. Well, I don't want to spend it on the marketing dollars. I don't know about our branding is fine. If you could talk a little bit about that, and we'll of course be interactive. And Jeff, too, you've done a lot around branding, marketing. I'm going to leave you two to sort of have a conversation, and I'm here, and we'll interject when I see the necessity. But and
Okay,
by the way,
so
hello,
Michael,
Sandy.
there's so much more that goes into this that people are not even realizing with the way that AI is taking over and the planet is
Right?
changing. People are completely unaware of what's coming. You think you're afraid of losing your job right now? Whew, just wait. Your branding is more important than your marketing budget right now, and people don't even
Mhm.
realize it.
What I find fascinating is even if you're not putting anything up on social media or you're not actually doing anything, you're still branding, right? You're
That's
still putting
branding.
something out there. That's still branding.
Yeah.
Mm.
So here's the thing. Right now, people are actually starting to ghost social media. They're getting tired of it. They're taking breaks. There are apps that people are putting on their phones that actually lock them out of their social media channels. Think about that. You're paying to not give yourself access to Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, things like
Hmm.
that. So
Wow.
people are trying to get away from it. And that's why branding is even more important. So I think, you know, most people, when they think of marketing, they think of the
Mhm.
money that they have to put in and the outcome, the ROI. What's your ROI?
Mhm.
But when they actually go to hire someone to help them with their marketing or help them with their sales or whatever it is, they're actually using the person's branding to make that decision without even
Right.
realizing it. Like, are you
Yeah.
going to hire someone who says, "Oh, I can get you, let's just say, um, I can generate $10,000 in sales every single day for you," and then they have no credentials, they have no testimonials, no referrals, there's nothing. You're like, prove it. You are
Yeah.
looking at their branding to make that decision, and that's what people are overlooking. Your branding is super valuable. Wouldn't you agree, Jeff?
Mm. Yeah, I totally agree with all that. You know, the what come to mind when you were just talking now, and by the way, I'll preface this, it's not me picking on life coaches, but it's like hiring a 20-year-old life coach. You know, that
Which
itself has
makes
got
no sense
some
to me.
branding behind it, right? It
20-year-old.
makes no sense. I know, right? What experience do you have? How can you help me through life? You're only just getting started, but even that self and that is, yeah, that's mismanagement in branding. But I find this fascinating when you talk about branding with our clients all the time. They automatically go to colors, fonts, logos, all of that sort of jazz. You know, in simple terms, I suppose my question for you to really to pick your brain, and I'm being a student as well. What is branding really, and why does it matter so much? Why does it matter than actually our marketing, more than our marketing tactics?
Well, first of all, branding is you. It's putting
Hmm.
yourself out to the world in a way that's visible to others. So it's the way you present yourself, the information that they discover, it's everything available about you online and in person and what other people say. And that's what people don't realize. Your brand is everything about you. So that's
Right.
why it's really, really important. And, you were saying about these life coaches and stuff. Yes, you want to hire someone who has experience, someone who actually knows what they're talking about, someone who's been in the dirt and has been pulling the weeds. And a lot of times there are people out there saying, do this and do this and do this for your branding, but they've done really good branding on themselves. And so you might actually be hiring the wrong person. So for
Uh,
your business, branding yourself, getting the word out there. And like I said, it's not just online. It's also what other people are saying about you. What does that look like? And you
right.
have to be able to control that narrative so it's in the way that best represents you possibly.
I love
But,
that.
one thing I found, I'm going to jump in here quickly because you talked about color palettes. It was literally just 5 years ago that we hired somebody to do branding just for a small part of what Mary and I were doing. The first thing she came up with is, well, we got to have the color palette. We got to have all these different color palettes. And literally, I'm like, I'm hiring you. Don't show me color palettes. Don't show me different. And you're, first of all, you're driving me crazy. Secondly, why are we going through this? And that was never, well, all your materials must, have a certain design and a look and a um but she literally, I was ready in 2 sessions to fire her, and we paid her a lot of
Yeah.
money.
That's called graphic
um
design, and that's the
Yeah.
mistake that a lot of branding people make is they think it goes
Right.
to color palettes and fonts and images. When I work with my clients, we don't even touch that. I have a
Mm.
workbook that I take them through to get through stuff, information and things that I need to truly understand their brand. I don't even get to colors and all the foo-foo stuff for sometimes a month to 2 months, depending on the deep work that we have
Yeah,
to
there
do
you go.
before. So
You
it's
know,
about really understanding you as a person and knowing how you want to be perceived by the world. And that's what people miss. That's the most valuable part about branding. How are you perceived?
how you perceive,
so
that's powerful right there.
yeah.
And I love that you identified the fact, because what Michael's talking about with color palettes and all of that, that's really brand identifiers. When said sees the brand, right? They associate, but what are they associating with? They're associating the feeling, they're associating the emotion behind that brand that they connect the dots with. This
Hmm.
is such an important topic. Like, this is something that we're even teaching our 13-year-old and our 12-year-old. At the moment, Australia's just gone through our, under 16 social media ban, and there's some pros and cons to that conversation. That's a conversation for another day. But inside of that, we're teaching them how to leverage social media as a tool to help them to start to create their brand now. So when they go get a job, a job, that essentially is their new version of their resume. Like, they're already got their identity, they've already got their skill sets, they've already got their values. The stuff that the real brand is entwined with. They're there and ready for people to go and do their research on. And so we're playing the game a little bit ahead of the game here to get them set up for success, not for failure. But the big thing I want to come back here to branding is, one of the things I like to teach our people is finding their voice. And voice is an
Hmm.
acronym. V for values and vision, O for your origin story, I for your influence. How, you got to know your people that you're working with so you can influence them. C for clarity of your message. But the E part here is E for expression.
Hmm.
And I think there's too many cookie cutter, bland, boring, that doesn't get my attention anymore brands out there.
It's so
Whereas
true.
you need the ones that have got it, but you can tell the authentic ones that have put some time and effort and energy into this conversation, because they do stand out and raise above the noise, right? So I love to unpack the importance of really getting into the values, the mission, the vision part of branding, and why is that really important?
Yes. Well, let me make this point. Right now, if you go on LinkedIn, which I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so I am working to grow my brand, grow my audience, the whole entire thing. I've been paying a lot of attention and I see so much inauthenticity when it comes to the branding that people are doing
Mm-hmm.
that it's actually quite disappointing. A
Mm,
lot of people there don't even touch their accounts. It's completely run by virtual assistants. And you can tell when you actually read the comments. So for me, you can tell I'm the one responding because I'm the one that goes, yeah, that
Interesting.
sucks. Or I didn't get that when I was growing up. Like I make funny, quirky comments and I say things that are personal and I'll take little jabs at people just for fun in a polite way.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
can tell it's me.
Yeah.
Then you read the next comment and it's like, inauthenticity is very strategic when it comes to, and like just the way it's said, you're like, virtual assistant. But these
Or
people are,
AI.
well, the virtual assistants are using AI. Exactly.
Mm.
Because AI bots, LinkedIn's gotten really good about that and it's starting to block those things. So it's actually someone physically going in there using AI and then
Yeah.
copying and pasting it in. So yes, AI. And, but it's just funny to see. And then when you go and look deeper at these accounts and these people are selling huge services, you're like, you're not even running, nothing is said is authentic. It's all fake. So people are starting to see through that. So yes,
Yeah.
your voice is really important, but it's not just what you're saying in your audience. It's how you're saying it.
The
It's the
delivery.
amount of
Yeah.
engagement you're doing. It's the actual participation in real life that is
Mm.
what you need to provide your audience and what your audience is actually looking for. Which is why I had said earlier, people are starting to leave social media. They're going to
Yeah.
WhatsApp groups and like Telegram groups and private groups to be there where people are real. Substack is huge right now. Everyone's moving there because they feel like the writing is more authentic and the people are actually engaging. We know that's going to shift soon, but yeah,
The big key word
Mhm.
here is trust, right? You know,
absolutely.
a strong brand will shorten that trust building cycle and essentially faster way to get an audience to buy, right? And so,
Yeah.
you know, I'm seeing more and more as we get into this AI conversation as well. The brands that, you know, like what you're talking about, actually that's put the human touch back into the conversation and actually show up and be like true authentic, not fake authentic, are the ones that are being able to move the needle forward faster with that trust building cycle.
It's so
Yeah.
true. And especially now with influencers. I mean, I read a post recently from a woman who specializes in marketing, and she said that big followings, people who have millions of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers, they're not doing as well as people who have
Mm,
3,000 followers and are real.
mm,
And it's
fascinating.
true. Think about when you follow someone famous and you think something's cool and you comment on their post, you never expect a reaction from them. You never expect them to respond. And if you do, it obviously is automated, right? So you're like, you DM them, they never respond. You try to connect with them, they don't connect with you. But
Yeah.
then you go to someone who might have 2,000 followers and you say, oh my gosh, this is really inspiring. I love what you wrote here. It really touched my soul. And then they actually respond. It's like, what? So now you start digging a little deeper and you look at their profile a little bit closer and you might click that link and go to their website. And now you are more incentivized to engage with them, hire them, and work with them because they're
Mm,
real. And you know that they're going to react. They respond to their messages. I recently responded to someone. I did a post about your image and a gentleman, and I actually said in my post, I will review your image if you just send me a message. No one took me up on it except for one guy. And I had 20,000 impressions on that within the first day. So out of 20,000 eyeballs, one person was brave enough to ask. And I responded to him and I gave him my feedback on his photo. And he came back and went, "First of all, I'm floored you messaged me." He didn't even
fascinating.
expect a response.
Yeah.
And that's telling of what's going on in the world right now.
Mm,
Yeah. I think too, that's a great point because if you look at like podcasting, there's a lot happening within podcasting where they're like, I don't want to see edits. I don't want to know it's a script. And I want a conversation because in a conversation, then I get to know it's not just the interview, but the interview, I get to know both sides.
Yeah.
And I want it to be real and I want it to
yeah.
be something that means something to me, which I also find fascinating. Here's another thing. By the way, I'm a bad client, but I don't
At
ever
least you
read
Why
admit it.
are you a
At least
testimonials.
you
bad
admit it.
Right.
client?
I don't ever read testimonials. Literally at this point, if I know and like and trust you and I can tell within 10 seconds, we're off and running. Um, but that's just the way it is. But how important overall really, so you can't use me, don't even put me in the end group. how important are testimonials? And there's a certain way that testimonials I know should be done without them making look like, again, you scrubbed them through AI.
I think testimonials are important depending on how you use them and where you place them. If people are putting them
Mm,
up at the top, in the front, and just constantly, you see those websites, you see the
Oversaturation. Yeah.
barrage, yeah,
Hmm.
of testimonials. Like,
Oversaturated. Yeah.
come on.
It's
But
almost a turn off.
it is a turnoff, right? Yeah. But if you have a good ones, if you can get video testimonials from people that are real everyday people and they're talking about their results, and then you can
mhm.
actually show the results, I think that's more powerful than having a million testimonials on your profile. But one other thing I think is very powerful is, as I said, I use LinkedIn a lot, is the recommendation section on LinkedIn where
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
because they have to have real accounts to go in
Yeah.
and you can see if they're verified and you can see their words, you can see their typos, you can see all of that stuff. It's nicer, I think, in terms of judging someone based off of those recommendations than when you see them on their website where they're screen grabs or they're
Mm.
typed out and you never really know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
Or
You,
That's
videos. Videos are good.
right.
it's
And so
more
that's a good
verifiable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good point too, because that's a when I, because it does have the recommendation piece, and people have usually gone in there and said something, and you're right, there's not websites nowadays. I mean, I'm not saying anything to the web, but you built the website, you want it to look a certain way, right? It's your people, it's better to have that outside influence. Is that happening on Substack now? Is there any ability to find recommendations, or are people able to recommend on there yet?
Yes. When you sign up for a Substack, one of the first
Hmm.
questions it asks you is, would you like to follow these accounts based off of the recommendation from the person you're about to follow? So it asks you
Oh,
generally, and then when you go to follow someone, it'll ask you again. So,
okay.
for
Okay.
example, my Substack recommends other Substacks, and I have built my following based off of other people recommending my Substack.
Got it.
That's an
Okay,
interesting strategy.
interesting.
I love this whole conversation because what I'm picking up and what you're putting down is branding equals trust, right?
Yes.
So, in a world that's starving for connection, starving for trust, really, it's really important to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward and in a way that continues to build the trust bank. And so I actually did a masterclass on this the other day about, making sure that we're building our influence from a position of, making sure we're putting deposits in the trust bank, build, build,
Yes.
build, 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 build. So when we do ask for a withdrawal, we're asking from a bank that is overflowing of gratitude and joy and abundance because it's already full versus, asking from it from a lack, scarcity space, an empty space, and we're sort of taking it into a deficient space. It's funny
Mhm.
because I talk about this with our marriage with my beautiful wife too. Every time I have an argument, I'm taking a withdrawal out of the trust bank. Every time I do something good and I get brownie points, we're putting something back into the trust bank. It's
You
all
must
about
know my
relationship
husband
building,
Ken
right?
very well. He does
It's
the
all about
same thing.
relationship.
He's like, didn't I earn enough points? I was like, no.
Yeah. Hold
No.
on a second. This is a conversation for another day because right?
Well, it is and
This
it
is
isn't.
gonna no,
Because
this is
brand.
gonna go for I know this is good, but this is gonna go for the men who compartmentalize everything. And we say, didn't we build up? And then the woman who's like the tree and it flows, but it all interconnects and we don't, yeah. Okay, this is gonna be a good conversation another day. Um, but I think there is that for me, I still have because I've had so many experiences with branding that have been positive, and I realize what we're doing, and we get it done really fast. I mean, it just moves compared to sitting. I'll never forget 20 years ago with a big speaker. We sat in a room for 5 days with a branding guy. He flipped a $50,000 check to, and there were boards and everything. And what he came up with, I'm like, we could have done that in the first hour. I have no idea why we paid you. I mean, it was almost like the Nike swoosh. I'm like, I was stunned. And I thought, okay. And then it's those experiences we have that then took me years to like how important this all was and how
Mm.
important it is and how important then I had to break out of my stuff and I had to break out of that experience. Or I thought maybe I should do that as a career. But it was in a way, it was how the person even running us through it was limited into themselves. They had a
Mm.
certain way they wanted to go. I think they probably had a design that they loved, because they kept pushing in a certain direction. And
Mhm.
I thought, are you listening? And
Mm.
Mm-mm.
I think somebody who does
Yeah.
branding and design and marketers and people who really, it's can I listen?
Hmm.
And what is it that
Too
the
easily, yeah.
client wants? Not about me. And I think that's where you're great, Sandy, is you do listen. I mean, it's amazing how you can listen to Jeff, and I have no idea. But and I think that's an important piece, because I think for somebody who really works in the branding and marketing, you've got to be able to listen.
Sure
It's
do.
true.
But
You
you're
know,
hearing
I want to,
something that I don't hear. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, it makes absolute sense. You know, it's not just the branding, listening, and all the things that we were talking about. One other element that's really important to branding that I think is also overlooked is consistency. Now, I know you
Mm.
hear, "Oh, consistency is key and you have to be consistent." It's so real. It's so easy to overlook. People think they're being consistent because they show up a few times a week. No, every single day, rinse and
Several times.
repeat. Several
Mm.
Mhm.
times a day, get
Yeah.
on there. And it doesn't mean being consistent in the same thing. It doesn't mean posting 10 times a day. It means if you post 5 days a week, post 5 days a week around the same time every single
Yeah.
day. And then for an hour, engage
Okay.
authentically. Actually go and like other people's posts and comment on things and give your feedback and genuinely try to help. And those are the things that build that authenticity. I actually was helping one guy in some WhatsApp group I'm in, and I gave him some advice on his LinkedIn. That was it. Weeks later, I went into my LinkedIn and he left me the nicest recommendation I could ever imagine. Like, I felt
I
so
love
touched
that.
because he didn't hire me. I didn't work with him very long, but what I did help him with changed him. It changed his business, it changed his life, and it helped. And he gave me the most beautiful recommendation. So as long
Yeah.
as you're consistent and you are in your voice, you're being who you are. And one last thing I want to add is not professional.
Mm.
I know that sounds crazy. Like, why would you not be professional? Be
You know, I get
professional,
it.
but
I get it.
not what is expected professional. So expected is quiet, polite, all those things, professional, dress a certain way, behave a certain way. No, be professional. Like, don't say anything offensive, but be yourself, have personality,
Yeah.
say something that
Expression.
might
E for
shock
expression.
someone.
Mm.
Yeah, have expression. Because if you
Yeah, yeah.
don't, you kind of get boring and washed away. And that's what people aren't seeing. That's why when I
Well,
see some posts on social media, they're so boring and so flat because people are being too professional and they're
yeah,
not
yeah.
adding that pop of color or making something crazy to shock someone and have expression. Exactly.
Well, the whole caffeinated kangaroo came about was because I wanted to mimic, brands like Steve Irwin. Really
Yeah.
leave into the Australian, but I didn't want to copy Steve Irwin. I wanted to be unique and original in myself. So I actually used AI in a way to help support that conversation. And we went through a couple of different iterations, and the caffeinated kangaroo was born. And off the back of that, words like boom sauce was born off the back of that.
Yeah.
So, but these are things that I am consistently repeating and throughout the branding that people recognize. When you hear the word boom sauce, you think of Jeff Ross, you think of the caffeinated kangaroo story that I continually talk about because I'm consistent through that. But even just this conversation here right now, the key thing that picks up for me and where I was going with before is, branding equals trust, but trust is built off the back of relationships. And this is just about being human to human, heart to heart conversations and connections, and doing it from that servant-hearted leadership space, not from the
Mhm.
consumer, I've got to get something space. And
Yeah.
I think they're the strongest brands that show up and light at the moment. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree with you. And you know what?
Uh,
You had mentioned Steve Irwin, and what was so powerful about him is he was just him.
he was
Mhm.
iconic.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to be
No,
someone. He wasn't trying to impress people. He was like, "Crikey, I'm gonna grab this and blah blah blah." And he was just
right?
him,
Just
and that
showed
was
up,
so
just
fun.
him. Yeah, it
One of my
was
clients is Prince Stash, and his following blew up very quickly overnight because same thing. He's just him. And
it's
some of the
refreshing.
videos that we film are him being in his crazy moments where he says stuff that people are like, "Well, I can't believe he just said that." Other people would have been professional and censored it. He would have been professional if he were editing his own videos and censored it. And
Right.
and you can't do that. You have to let people have
Mm,
expression. And that's what really
Yeah.
works.
And
I love
yeah,
that.
this has been great, because I think it's that, we're coming to that time again. But this has been great because it is
No, no, keep going, keep going.
yeah, I even still feel the Barry in myself. I feel there's just that part of the professionalism versus the branding versus the marketing. And this is a bigger topic I think that will continue. And I know we're going to get questions around it. but I think there is that be yourself, be authentic,
Mm.
really, be who you are. There's always that fear. But I think the thing you said, Sandy, was just do it. Just
Yeah.
spend that little time every day, and then the hour when you're really interacting. But that's where people, it's create a habit and all of that. But they're also fearful. And now I can use AI. Stop it. Just be yourself.
There's one silver lining to all of that, though, because it can be
Okay.
scary to be yourself, especially if you don't really know who you are.
Correct.
When you actually show up and you're consistent and you do it, yourself evolves and comes through.
Mm.
So if
It's
you
another
start and you
conversation,
don't know, it'll eventually
Mhm.
come through and you'll start to see a
right?
pattern form and go, ah,
And so this is a
get
whole
it.
conversation for another episode, but that's basically just described my journey for the last 15
Yeah.
years. For the first
Yes.
10 years, I was struggling to try and be somebody who I was not. Last 5 years, I've just stepped in and been myself and had a lot of fun doing it.
And everything
Uh,
changed,
Every
right?
day.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure did.
Every day. Well, I want to thank everybody for being on again. My amazing co-host, Sandy Grigsby and Jeff Ross. It's always about conversation. It's always about sometimes talking about the things that are uncomfortable, sometimes talking about what needs to come out. We're going to have some amazing guests coming up. We'll be showing those in the show notes as that does. The other thing too, by the way, is I won't say when, because, you never know when the podcasts are going to hit, but at the end of what is it? The end of January, I'm actually going to do a live show from Beto's, the co-founder of Zumba, from
Oh,
his gym.
wow.
That's
And
cool.
so I'm going to
That's
make
You're
cool.
these
going to
two
take me
wake up
dance
early or
around?
wake up late so we can do a live unwanted while we're there. Yeah. The thing
Unwanted
was,
or unmuted?
You
You just
are
did
called
I
it.
just
unwanted.
did it again?
You just called us
I'm going to do,
unwanted.
no, I know I did that the other day. Somebody said, that's a great name of a podcast. Isn't that also a movie? But yeah, so unmuted.
Angelina
Great.
Jolie, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And they said, are
Oh
you going to
dear.
do Zumba? Is that it? Are you going to I'm going to be the greatest host you've ever seen. That's the way it's going to be. So, we're going to have, it's a great time. Spend the time with us. If you want to know more about us, you can go to the show notes, of course. We want to thank everybody for just listening, taking your time. You're driving in your car, you're sitting at home. Hopefully you're cooking a great meal. I just made some caprese salad and some other stuff for a good later snack, and just having a great time. Any last words before we let them go off into the wilderness?
Just to clarify, the name of the podcast is Unmuted, and our tagline is where real voices get loud.
And maybe we
No,
need a mute button so we can mute Michael
maybe,
sometimes.
maybe. No,
Yeah,
it's been an absolute
that's
pleasure
it.
doing this with you both, and absolutely loving this ride that we're on.
Yes.
That's all you have to say is yes and no.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Come
yeah,
on,
I
I
love
said
it.
enough. I think I spoke 90% of this
No,
episode.
this is good. This is good. Yeah, thank you everybody for being on. And by the way, and Sandy was right too. There is that but if you can't have fun and you don't enjoy what you do, go find something else. That's what we
Correct.
always say, right?
That's real. That's real.
Yeah.
Life's too
I have
short.
to say, the moment I start going, I hate this job, I have to shift and do something else.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
Yeah.
you become miserable.
life's
That's
too
right.
short.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day. All right. I almost said it again. Unmuted. Thank you so much, everybody, for being on. This has just been an amazing time. Make sure that you like and subscribe if we're on YouTube, wherever you hear us. If you're the download, get other people to download. Comments are always great. We'd love to see them. We'll actually bring them on to the next couple shows we do. Thank you, everybody, for being on. We're going to take us out in 3, 2, 1.